All right, guys, Fallout 76. I just saw that it was on Game Pass. You can download it for free. You can obviously buy the game if you want to. It's pretty cheap. Is it worth buying? Is it even worth downloading on Game Pass? That's what we're going to answer here today. So firstly, it depends on if you like this style of game. It's an RPG and a story-driven game, therefore it's slower than FPSs obviously, but even action adventure games, it's a slow game. You have to take your time with it. There's something here. Yo, it's a robo-dog. Yo. Is it entirely robotic? I think it is. For me, and I think if you ask a lot of Fallout fans, Fallout 76 falls well short of the RPG story-driven elements that Bethesda was known for making in their previous games like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and even Fallout 4 to some aspect. If you ask older Fallout fans, I think they'd agree. This video is about Fallout 76, and so to answer the main question, should you buy the game or even download it to play? Sort of. The problem with Fallout 76 is when the game was being made, the biggest selling point was the fact that it was going to be a co-op online game. The problem with the game is that instead of having NPCs were totally removed from the game. Instead of having those NPCs in the game, the story, the narrative was completely driven by holotapes, which essentially just play in your Pip-Boy. It's basically an audio recording.
I knew this wasn't going to be the Appalachia I remembered, but mutated animals, haywire bots, no people so far.
This was a very odd design choice, but fans were reassured the lack of NPCs would be made up with the always online servers and interactions with other players. So basically, NPCs taken out of the game, replaced with other players that you could interact with, and the story was completely driven by holotapes. The whole premise of the game is like you have to come out by yourself basically, which makes no sense because you're basically playing by yourself because no NPCs. Now, to skip the rest of the story, this design structure turned out to be a complete disaster, and Bethesda did a 180 on NPCs in the game.
Lady, I will paint the walls.
Honey, you picked the wrong time to get a drink.
What are you? Hey, we're not done here.
Yo, wait, I didn't mean to do that. But the game was already built and shipped with holotapes being the way the story was driven and told. The question for Bethesda became, how do you change the way a story is told in an always online game that also makes it cohesive and compelling? It's like building a car and a train while the train is pushing along the track. So this is the first glaring issue with the game. I've played a little bit of it, and you can tell where some parts are clearly holotape driven and where some parts are NPC driven. Check in with self-serve kiosk. See, this is part of like when the game was still with no NPCs, which is why like you're like, why are you talking to a computer? Like, this is why. You can't circumvent the entire game. They do an okay job of amalgamation of both to make it work, but it's clear that it doesn't always work in every circumstance. Problem is with this game is like they had designed the whole thing basically to work through these tapes. And then they realized once the game came out that it was a terrible idea, that they should never have done that. And so now you have a game where basically the entire story is told through tapes. And then they decided to basically change how the game works and add NPCs because they weren't there before. And so now you have to, like, it's like building a train as the train's moving along the tracks. Good luck. In fact, I would say that the parts of the story where it's simply holotape driven, where clearly that was from the get-go when the game was released, that was how those parts were made, are the poorest parts of the story. I'm not even going to mention some of the other glaring problems with the game, like the serious retcon issues with the Brotherhood of Steel, for instance. The Brotherhood of Steel is for some reason here. This makes no sense. It pisses me off. Redcon, by the way, basically means that this does not match up with previously held lore in the game. The Brotherhood of Steel was a West Coast faction. They were actually founded in the days before the Great War, and they wouldn't venture east for many more years after this game takes place. So to have the Brotherhood of Steel in the east already is just a complete retcon. It makes no sense for whatever lore was already previously believed. Is the combat at least good? No, not really. In fact, Fallout 4 had focused much more on combat, and it was a noticeable improvement. But obviously, Fallout 4 fans know, this came at the absolute obliteration of the RPG elements and consequences of choices. Basically, RPG was gone, and whatever choices you made in-game actually held no consequences. So it's strange to see that the combat in Fallout 76 has actually been degraded slightly. It's worse than Fallout 4. Oh my god. To shoot everything fucking twice, man. Not Supervisor Danforth. Now, admittedly, this may be due to the fact that you're playing on an always online server, co-op online server, and things like VATS, which previously in Fallout 3, VATS would actually pause time. It would be like you would just completely pause time. In Fallout 4, it would just stop time slightly, and VATS in 76 actually doesn't affect time at all. Things like that will affect the combat. So I'm sure the always online co-op servers are a reason why combat may not be as smooth. And speaking of the online servers, it's weird to me that there's still even a choice. I think I'd much rather play this game completely offline by myself. There are a lot of negatives that come with playing the online server that I've noticed so far. Certainly lag is playing an issue, long loading times between entering and leaving buildings, and sometimes the game will just outright freeze when entering or loading in between buildings. And these are things that solo players don't want to have to deal with because they are playing by themselves, and there's no reason to have to deal with them if you are playing by themselves. Just give them an option to play by themselves in an offline server where these online server lag issues won't be a part of it. It's strange to me that people didn't see this coming. Even now, I don't think Fallout 76 is nearly as good as it could have been. It's certainly not a Fallout experience online, but I think we've seen this before, not only from other RPG games that move to co-op online, but from Bethesda themselves. People forget Skyrim Online was their first real shot at turning a solo RPG game into a co-op online game. It was marketed as Skyrim but with friends, but it certainly did not turn out to be like that. In reality, it just turned out to be a very poor MMORPG style game, and a worse one at that. I think that Fallout 76 overall is a much improved game when it first launched, but people have to remember that Fallout 76 when it first came out was an unmitigated disaster, a complete disaster. Full transparency, I played Fallout 76, I think the second month it came out. There was a free weekend where you could play the game for free, and I did with one other friend, and it was just a really bad experience. Lag in the server, getting into the same server was an issue. The holotape driven story was just very boring. It was difficult to even stay focused on the task at hand. But worst of all, in a game like Fallout 76, where you were supposed to be able to cooperatively do quests, we were actually unable to do the same quest at the same time. Basically, we both had the same quest, but we had to do each step individually. So it was like playing with your friend, but not at the same time. It basically just didn't work. The whole questing system with friends did not work in a game where your questing with friends is the entirety of the game. That is an unmitigated disaster. I would say if you're looking for a real Fallout experience, I would play Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but Fallout 4 would actually be a better Fallout experience. Listen, if Fallout 76, if you have Game Pass, if you can download it for free, give it a shot. It's a free game. Like, you could try it, you could certainly like it. I think I might continue playing it just for the story because I think it might be interesting. I haven't really been up on the Fallout 76 lore. If you're not a huge Fallout fan, there's not much here for you. I would play other Fallout games for sure. There are better ones out there. The combat isn't great. The story isn't too spectacular. Again, lots of retcon issues. Again, any game is better with friends online. That's not really a plus, especially with the fact that sometimes you might have questing issues or lag or freezing. So to summarize, yeah, maybe get it. Maybe try it for free. Certainly wouldn't buy it. All right, guys, thanks for watching.